You practice pentatonic scales like crazy, running them up and down. You spend hours memorizing the box shapes. But when you try to solo, you still sound like a robot practicing scales. Well, here's the truth. The way you've been told to practice sucks. Teachers burying you in boxes or magic patterns that supposedly unlock the fretboard when the truth is, the pentatonic scale is just 5 notes. Not 5 boxes or 2 life-changing patterns. It's just 5 notes, each with its own unique sound. And that's what you should be mastering. By the end of this video, you'll totally understand the DNA of the pentatonic scale and be able to use it to solo easily anywhere on the neck of the guitar. Let's use G Minor Pentatonic as an example. G Minor Pentatonic has the notes G, which is the solid sounding root, B flat, which is the bluesy minor third, C, which is a color or tension note, the fourth, D, which is another chord tone, the fifth, and F, another bluesy note, the flat 7. Notice I described the sound of each of those intervals. I can't overemphasize how important it is to start thinking in sound and intervals. That's the total opposite of just memorizing a pattern. Here's the problem though. When most of us learn the pentatonic scale, we learn this, a box that covers all 6 strings, and it's freaking overwhelming. Our brains get overloaded just trying to remember where to put our fingers, and our musicality goes right out the window. Here's how we fix that. Instead of mindlessly running that 6-string box, we're going to build your vocabulary from the ground up. We're going to start with just 2 strings. We're going to come up with a lick using those DNA notes and move it through every box on the neck. Once you own 2 strings, we'll add a third. Get that down, we add a fourth. Pretty soon we're moving across the whole neck without even thinking about it. Let's start with this 2-string lick in G minor. We're going to start in pattern 1 of G Minor Pentatonic with the D note or the 5th, then play F or the flat 7, G, which is our root, B flat, which is the minor third, and then back to G, F, D, F, and we'll end up on the G root note. So we took the 4 notes available to us in this position, we made it a 9-note lick. And here's what I mean when I say I want you to understand the DNA of the pentatonic scale. Every one of those 4 notes sound great over a G minor chord because those 4 notes spell out a G minor 7. We've got the root, the minor third, the 5th, and the 7th, flat 7th. And the order we play them in allows us to end up on the root note G. And this lick fits the chord perfectly. Now up to speed, we're playing 16th notes, but if we play it slower and really soak in the sound of each note, we start on the 5th. It's a solid sounding note. Not as solid as the root, but it still feels like home. Then the flat 7th. You can feel that moving away from the stability of the 5th, and then we hit that root, and we're grounded again. Playing the flat 3rd, we really drive home the sound of minor, and then going back to the root brings us home again. So there's a formula for all the licks that we're going to play today, and really for all the licks that you play the rest of your life. Mixing up notes that feel really solid with notes that move away from that feeling, and then resolving back to one of those solid notes. Maybe the most important thing here is we're establishing the notes we play in our licks have a relationship to the chord that we're soloing over. We're not just randomly noodling through a pattern. That's so important. Hey, before we move on, if these videos are helping you with your guitar playing and your understanding of music, do me a favor, like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out, and continued growth gives me a reason to keep making these videos. Thanks. Now here's the next phase of our practice routine. Let's move the formula or shape of our lick up to the second pattern of G minor pentatonic, which has the notes F, G, B flat, and C, or the flat 7, root, minor third, and fourth. Notice we lose the fifth, but we did gain the fourth. And if we play the lick exactly like before, we end up on B flat or the minor third. And that note is a chord tone and a very expressive one. The flat third is what makes minor minor after all. But if we wanted the lick to sound even more grounded, we could end on the G root instead. And we can do that now because we're understanding not just the DNA of the scale, but the DNA of the chord. And we're going to be able to start hearing options like that and making decisions on what notes sound best to us. Let's keep going. In the third position of G minor pentatonic, we've got the notes G, B flat, C, and D, or the root, minor third, fourth, and fifth. And if we play the lick in the original 9-note form, we're going to end up on the C note. And now that fourth interval, it's not a chord tone. And ending a lick on the fourth, it's going to make it sound unfinished. The ear detects it doesn't really jibe with the chord, and we want that note to go somewhere. Now, since we're playing with intention and not just blindly noodling, we could go from the fourth down to the root. Or up to the fifth. Either of those notes make a great choice for a solid sounding resolution. Moving to the fourth pattern, we get the notes B flat, C, D, and F, or minor third, fourth, fifth, and flat 7. Played like the original, we're going to end up on D or the fifth, which sounds really great. Or we could play down to the flat third, and that also sounds great. It's our choice as artists, not robots. Lastly, let's move up to the fifth pattern and we get the notes C, D, F, and G, or the fourth, the fifth, the flat 7th, and the root. And played like the original, we'd end up on the F or the flat 7, and that note really wants to resolve up to the root. Or we could go down to the fifth. Either of those choices gives us that solid resolution we want. So what just happened? You didn't just memorize a shape. You learned the sound and the function of all the notes of G minor pentatonic on the E and B strings through all 5 boxes. You were practicing by making actual music, and it's not just useful, it's fun. Here's a hard truth. If you memorize a pattern but you can't use it to create a solo, you haven't really learned a damn thing. Real learning isn't memorization, it's application. If you're not able to use the concept, you're just wasting your time. Keep that in mind every time you pick up the guitar and anytime you take a lesson of any kind. Okay, it's time to jump it up a level and add another string. In the first pattern of G minor pentatonic, we now have the notes B flat and C on the G string. So now we've got the minor third, the fourth, the fifth, the flat 7, the root, and the minor third again. To keep things simple, we're going to keep the template of the lick from the first variation, and then we're going to add in those notes on the G string to it. So we're going to play D, F, G, B flat, G, F, D, F, and G. And we're going to hold that last G note for a beat to start things off. And then G, F, D, B flat at the third fret of the G string, and now we've got another consideration. The backing track that we're using now moves on to a C chord. And since we're not just noodling anymore, we've got to think about that. So B flat is the minor third of G minor, but it's the flat 7 of C. So we want to finish the lick in this position with the C note at the 5th fret of the G string instead. And bam, everything clicks into place and we've got the perfect resolution for that C chord. Okay, moving up to the second pattern, we have the notes C and D at frets 5 and 7 of the G string. And if we play the exact same lick as our first example, we're going to end up with the D note over the C chord. And all we have to do is switch the order and end up on the C root, and that's going to sound great. How about pattern 3? We're going to gain the notes D and F at frets 7 and 9 of the G string. Those are the 5th and the flat 7 of G. But notice, neither one of those is a chord tone of C major, which has the notes C, E, and G. Remember that in this position, the original lick from the first example ended on C. So we added in the D note to finish on a solid chord tone. And if we applied the original shape to the rest of the lick, we'd end up on the F note, which sounds interesting over the C chord, but kind of unfinished or unstable. So instead, we're going to be artists and not robots, and we're going to end up on the G at the 5th of C. Now the lick sounds really cool. The 4th position, it's going to give us F and G, or the flat 7 and the root on the G string, and it works out to play our original shape here. So the first part ends on D or the 5th of G, and the second half is going to end on G or the 5th of C. Lastly, in the 5th pattern, we get G and B flat on the G string. Those notes are the root and the minor third of G, but they're the 5th and the flat 7 of C. Once again, we had to alter the first half of the lick slightly to end on G instead of F. And then we're going to play straight down the scale from F to the G or the 5th of C on the G string. Are you getting the hang of this? Again, the most important thing I want you to take away is that when you learn something, memorization is not enough. That's why your literature teachers didn't have you stop at memorizing how to spell a word. They always asked you to use it in a sentence to make sure you understood the meaning. Memorizing a scale pattern but not understanding the notes of the scale and how they relate to chords, that's just like being able to spell a word but not being able to use it in conversation. It's just useless trivia if you think about it. All that being said, here are the licks that we just came up with through all 5 positions of G Minor Pentatonic over the backing track. Okay, so we keep on making up licks on 4 strings, 5 strings, 6 strings, but instead I'm going to give you a different challenge. This is how I test if students can actually use a concept. We're going to take our 3-string lick and move it everywhere. Different strings, different octaves, total freedom. I see this with my students, and hell, it happens to me sometimes. We try to play a lick in a different key or in a different spot on the guitar. We get lost and we hit a bad note, or we just freeze up entirely. But practice like I'm about to show you, you're going to stop getting lost and you're going to be able to play anywhere you want on the neck. Now the first half of our 3-string lick was the notes D, F, G, B flat, G, F, D, F, and G. We sit on that G for a beat, and the second half of the lick was G, F, D, B flat, and C. Now, remember the starting notes for each half of the lick. That's a really important habit to get into. The first half started on D, and the second half started on G. Now we're going to look for other spots to play the lick in, and the first step is finding D notes. So we've got a D note at the 10th fret of the low E string. Now we had to make a position shift to play it, but we played it. There's a D at fret 5 of the A string. It's pretty easy to play it there. And remember, hear the sound of the lick in your head before you play it. And remember the starting notes of the 2 halves of the lick. It's going to help you so much. How about the D at fret 12 of the D string? It works there, and we can even go down to the open position and play it. There's a D note at the 7th fret of the G string. Works great there, and then we'd be back to the D notes on the B string, which is where we started off. And here's the great takeaway from this kind of practicing. We're not even thinking about scales or boxes or patterns anymore. We're hearing the lick in our heads. We've benchmarked the 2 starting notes of the 2 halves of the lick, and we're trusting ourselves to just play it. That, my friends, is the essence of real learning on guitar. So now that you've got a better way to practice and some understanding of the DNA of this scale, what's left is to go make music. You should come over to my Patreon page where I've posted the backing track and a PDF of the licks in this video. The link is in the description below. Grab your guitar, start practicing like I showed you, and stop with the robotic memorization madness. As always, I appreciate you watching. Have fun with that guitar. I'll see you in the next video.